The Spectrum has got the ancient wise men of the retro game internet all a-quiver, causing even the most stoic of 80s joystick wagglers to get an attack of the Jane Austen vapours. I actually soiled myself in excitement, and while I won't tell you which bodily excretion it was due to not wanting to overshare, I can tell you it was one of the groinal 3. On the 22nd of November 2024, courtesy of retrogames.biz, for the princely sum of just $84.99, you will get a modernised replica of the iconic 48K shell case. It will be loaded with 48 of the sexiest low-colour mid-80s gaming delights known to man, with not a streak of Commodore 64 turd brown in sight. It is a finely curated list, there's no doubt about it, taking in a range of different genres and iconic high points. Given licensing restrictions, it means we won't get to see any of the classic arcade conversions, or the movie or TV adaptations. So apart from that, they could not have picked a better list, really. At least, not in a general consensus kind of way. What's really good about it is, like the Commodore 64 and Amiga mini machines, you can add additional titles. And for the most part, they're fairly easy to source too. Just don't tell anyone you've got them, because there are SWAT teams prepped to break down doors on Christmas afternoon for people planning to illegally download ORM and cheap narrow squeaks onto their shiny new toy. Now, the reason they chose 48 games to go on is fairly obvious to all but the most ridiculously mentally feeble. But if one was to purchase it, what games would you add to the machine to make it a nicely rounded 100? Well, I've had a thought on this, and I'm going to give my own personal choices in order of year of release that the games came out. But once I've done my list, I want you to tell me why I'm a big idiot and how come that your personal nostalgic favourite wasn't included in the comments below. Go on, you've got nothing better to do, just tell me, will you? So here are my 52 games that I'm going to add and why they're in there. Let's start at the very beginning, like a normal person would, and 1983's 3D Death Chase. Now, this one comes up on a lot of lists as people's kind of, like the version of Bohemian Rhapsody or Shawshank Redemption. Everyone says they love it. But I think it deserves its place because it is a fantastically quick, fast shoot 'em up on a motorbike, on a speeder bike. You can go like Billy-O and you have to avoid these trees. Yes, it's very much like Return of the Jedi, that sequence in there. But you'll find, although there's not a lot of games earlier on, because I got my computer probably in 1986 or 7, this is one of the ones that I have returned to frequently. And there's nothing really much to it. It's just pure playability. Scrabble. Now, this is obviously a nostalgic pick because it's not a particularly great game, but I think it has to go on there because I think it's one of those games that was bundled in with this is the old Spectrum 6-pack with the 48K. And now the reason I'm talking about this rather than the other games on there, Horace is already on the system, and this is a pure nostalgia pick. I think it's because you can lie to the computer. You can lie to your Spectrum and say Frusdig is a real word and the Spectrum has to believe you. But also I think I played it with my sister. It was one of the first games I played multiplayer. And it's quite educational. And I think for what it is, it does the job really well. Moving straight on to 1984 and Jet Set Willy. And of course, I think this had to be on the main thing. I don't know why it isn't. Manic Miner is. Maybe they didn't want to put too many of the same sort of game on there, but Jet Set Willy is the better game out of the two. Obviously Manic Miner was on one screen. Jet Set Willy has this expansive mansion that Matt Smith must have spent ages in his bedroom tapping away or creating. Each room is different. It's got like each room's got a character of its own, and that's where I think this game's magic lies, is each room is a different character. Incredibly playable. It's just left, right and jump. Very difficult, almost unfair at times, but you will come back to it. Better than Manic Miner in my opinion. I think it's 50-50 for people. Jet Set Willy is the better game in my opinion. And we've got our first licence, unless you count Scrabble, with Ghostbusters. Now, I don't know if you can actually say that this has aged that well. I still like it, and I think it was clever kind of going for an angle of you're an owner of the franchise of Ghostbusters, and so you've got like a set amount of money that you can spend on the car, all the accessories for it, and you can go out and you can trap ghosts. You've got to obviously look out for Zool, and when Zool happens, you've then got to sort out all the business that's happening there with Stay Puffed and what have you. I still really like it. And it's one of those games that I think is a nostalgic favourite for a lot of people. Every kid loved the film, and I think everyone sort of at the time liked the game. Alien, so another film licence. This one, of course, the Ridley Scott 1978 classic movie. It's really creepy to play. Basically, you're presented with this screen, which is the Nostromo. I think that was the one in the first film, wasn't it? Yes, Nostromo and then Sulaco. And basically, you've got to kind of sort of herd the alien, like they try and do in the film, and try and get everyone to survive. And it's really unsettling to play. Good atmosphere to it. Really like this game. And good work, Mind Games, for making this a really atmospheric early Spectrum movie license. Good work. Elite, 1984, and they've put Elite on your Spectrum. A hugely expansive, ambitious space trading game. It doesn't matter what format this came out on at the time. This game had no right to exist, but was good, I think, on every format they put it on. They even put it on the NES, I think, at one point. So yeah, good work, Firebird. It's a huge game. You can lose yourself for days and weeks in this. So I would say a worthy addition if you're going to add games to your Spectrum. 1985, and we've got our first arcade conversion, and this will be Spy Hunter. US Gold, who won't appear a lot in this because most of the games they did were Pump. They published this. It was a Bally arcade, of course, distributed by Sega over here. Top down, endlessly driving forward. You can shoot your enemies. You can turn into a little boat. You can blow up helicopters. Just really playable, really quick. Very difficult at times. I think when it gets a bit narrow, when you have to get onto the boat section down the little road there, it's really hard to control. But yeah, really good. Power-ups, plenty. A game that I used to play a lot back in the day, and would sit there and play for hours thinking it had an end. It did not, as far as I'm aware. But great stuff. Tornado Low Level. I could have put Cyclone in here too. It was sort of very similar, but I preferred TLL. It's a really similar game to it, but basically what you do is you can fly free around this map. Your idea is you go on these little bombing runs, you try and dodge all like the pylons and things that will get in your way, buildings. Tricky controls, but really good presentation, really fun to play. It sort of reminds me of a proto-Desert Strike, and obviously not quite as good, but I think as an early game for the Spectrum, and this is still early on, how good is it? Look at it. Amazing. Now, this was not only a game that I didn't know existed until very recently, but I was really surprised it was incredible. It's Hodder and Stoughton's The Rats, based on the James Herbert novel. It's the scariest game on the machine, without question. As scary as Aliens was, this is even scarier. Basically, it's what it says on the tin. London is beset by lots of little beasties running around and chewing the populace. You're in charge of like the pest control and have to stop London getting overrun, and you get like recruits and stuff, and then every now and again it goes to these little scenes where you have to play the role of usually a member of the public and have to survive, and if you don't, they burst through the text. It's incredible, this. I know it doesn't look great, but try it. Another quite surprising thing, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, as in the band, had a game that was actually incredible. Published by Ocean and designed by Denton Designs, it's an action-adventure where you can sort of wander around, and your idea is you've got to get to the Pleasure Dome, and you've got to get all your stats up, and they're all related to things to do with the band. So they're a bit edgy, because remember they got banned by Radio 1, which is quite quaint when you think back to it now. Really good, really creative, often quite confusing as you walk around Liverpool collecting odds and ends. But one, I think you have to experience this. It's hard to describe. Staying in the campy arena, we've got Rocky Horror Picture Show, where you have to guide round either Brad or Janet and try and escape the castle without being caught by Frankenfurter's minions. It's a small play area, really. It's quite trippy. It kind of stuff regenerates in different places, but it's really fun to play. Even though the time warp will just play on loop forever, don't let that put you off. It's a really good fun game, and a bit different too. Speaking of different, and we've got DK-Tronics Minder. Yes, Minder, based on the TV show, the sitcom stroke drama about Terry McCann looking after Arthur Daly's business. So Arthur Daly is your pro tag here, and basically the idea is you have to do what Arthur Daly does, sell off dodgy goods while turning a profit and avoiding the law and fellas who want to rip you off. It's packed full of character. It is one of the best uses of a great TV license that I think is possible. And it's the first of our Don Priestley entries, who I think was an absolute marvel on the Spectrum. Another great multiplayer game, Spy vs Spy by Beyond Software, based on a Mad Magazine comic strip. You sneak around an embassy stealing important documents, but there's a twist in the fact there's another spy. Is that controlled by the computer or a friend of yours? Who knows? But what you can do is you can basically scuttle about the place, you can duel with them, but you can also set up traps as well, and that's where a lot of the strength of the game comes from. It reminds me a lot of Bonanza Brothers, but it's a bit more than that, to be fair, and really good fun, especially in two players, as you look to escape with the briefcase and get the documents to your shadowy bosses. Back to school. So yeah, School Days is on here, and just like Jet Set Willy earlier, I think they should have probably put the sequel on. I know they didn't want to put too much of the same game on, but the second one I don't think is quite as tight as School Days, but it's certainly bigger. There's a girls' school next door to it. There's certainly a lot more to it overall. It's a very quintessentially British 80s schoolchild game as well. I don't think you get anything like this at all nowadays on anything else. It was actually, I think, programmed by a pair of teachers, this and the first game. So, really good game though. Next up, we've got Elite's Capcom conversion of Commando. One of the most playable games on this list, I think. A vertically scrolling run and gun. It doesn't really leave a lot of the arcade game out. You've got your little soldier and you have to make it up the screen, shooting fellas on the way and then blowing up their base. And then moving on to the next bit. Great stuff, I think. I don't know if you feel the same. There's people who prefer the Rambo game, Rambo 2, I think. But for me, Commando makes the list. It's another Don Priestley game, and I wasn't actually sure whether to put this on or actually pick a game that I really, really liked rather than one I just kind of like. But I always was captivated by the screenshots of this. I mean, look at the characters. Giant, he used basically multiple sprites together to make them work. It's slow and clunky, but it's just a technical feat, isn't it? It's still a good fun game though once you get into it. As soon as you get your head round it, it plays a lot better. I think it's going to go on there just because I could go, look what they were doing in 1985 on this pathetic piece of hardware that's basically just about stayed better than a calculator. Incredible stuff. 1986, and we've got Cobra. and Joffa Smith, who clearly didn't watch the film. But I think he was given an outline of it and just went, I'm just going to do this silly game. It's based on the Sly Stallone movie that everyone forgot about, where you play as Mario Cobretti as he seeks the Night Slasher. I'm going to probably go back and do a proper video on this at some point, but not a very authentic license. As you can see, it's very silly. You go around headbutting everything and occasionally shooting stuff as well. Really good fun. One of the best games on the system, despite being based on a reportedly pants film. Never seen Cobra. Sorry, Mario Cobretti. I've never seen you face down hoodlums in your aviators and leather jacket combo. Then we got Fat Worm Blows a Sparky. Now, there's the nature in cinema. You get films that you kind of watch just because of the title. You know, things like Cocaine Bear or Snakes on a Plane or Night Bitch. This is the Spectrum equivalent, because Fat Worm Blows a Sparky. Yeah, FNAR. It was made by Durell. It was the only game programmed by who's now an activist, a guy called Julian Todd. Exclusive to the Spectrum, your little fat worm that you're controlling has to creep around the internals of the Spectrum, around the transistors and whatnot, making sure that things don't go awry with it. Just really cool. Sometimes incredibly difficult to judge where you are due to the perspective. Neat little game this. And one that celebrates the hardware of the Spectrum in some way. Kind of. Should have been one of the games. Paperboy. It's an elite conversion of an Atari game. You know what this is. Everyone knows what this game is. You play on a quarter of the screen. You have to pelt houses with newspapers. Try and get in the letterboxes if they're nice and they're a subscriber, and break the crap out of their windows if they're not. That'll make them subscribe. And in the game, it does for some reason. And it's copies of The Sun as well. So, yeah. Vault those boobies at people. You could get killed by people just strutting around. It's one of those 80s games that just perfectly capture the feel of the decade. And blue monochrome as it is, it's still an incredible conversion. Very playable. Another arcade conversion, and another really good one. It's Green Beret by Imagine, converting the Konami Russian Attack game. You walk along and you stab people a lot. And if you stab them in the ankles, it strips all the skin off their body, just like a knife would. It is one of the most addictive games on the Spectrum, in my opinion. I know there's people that are really good at it. It's simple, it's fun, it's Green Beret. Dan Dare. Now, probably my favourite game on the Spectrum, certainly back from when the Spectrum was sold on the shelves. It was Virgin Games, based on the Eagle Comics character, of course. Dan Dare fighting against the Mekon. It's a run and gun, and it's got a timer on it and limited ammo. It's absolutely nerve-shredding to play. I must have played this a million times during my lifetime, and it's one of those games that I'll always come back to. It's just a shame the sequels weren't quite as good. They've got their supporters, but this was just streets ahead in my opinion. Trivial Pursuit, another one that probably shouldn't be on this list at all. Definitely a weird choice, but I had so much fun playing it last Christmas. It's basically the Domark version of it, because I think there's hundreds of versions of this around. You got this little funny character in the game. It's really good multiplayer fare. The questions are out of date, but I don't know. I think it's a sort of game which would be quite easy to make new questions for if you're a smarty pants on the computer, and it's perfectly functional. I'd say it's more of a utility than a game, but I think it's one of the best utilities on there because it's really good fun to play. And who wants to set up a board these days, honestly? Ugh, God no. Moving on to 1987, and we've got another DK Tronics, and another Don Priestley, and we've got Trapdoor, probably the best TV show license on the system. It's a lot like Popeye in its look, but it's a lot better to play. Still very slow to move Burke around. You've got a very small arena in which to move around as you make the thing upstairs is dinners. But yeah, just a terrific license. One of the best games on the system in my opinion, and certainly one of the most impressive to look at. Batty. Not based on David Batty, the footballer from the 90s, but instead an Arkanoid clone. Is it the best Arkanoid clone? Yes, I think it is, and I'm talking about on any system. It was a freebie on your Sinclair at one stage, again made by Elite. It's got fluid control. It's the best looking and best playing of these sort of bat and ball games. Really, really addictive stuff. I think they should have put this one on there as one of the main games, because it is the most addictive bat and ball game you'll probably ever play. Death Wish 3, a terrible movie, absolutely terrible. Charles Bronson, based on the series of Michael Winner. Calm down, dear. It's a violent shooter where you can blow up grannies with bazookas. Navigation is completely confusing at first, but once you get used to it, it's varied fun. It's by Gremlin graphics. I think it looks the part. There's variance in the gameplay because there's shooty bits where you shoot at the screen through windows. You go into like bases and liberate them. And overall, it's far better than the movie deserved. It really is. Terrific stuff. The Archers, another one of those games that I came to as a result of doing my channel. A game I wouldn't have touched in a million years unless I was doing the channel. The weirdest license I think possible. A radio soap opera. How did they do it? Well, they were very clever indeed. Basically, you're a BBC showrunner, and the idea is that you're kind of navigating how the story's going. And you can do things like upset your viewership by suggesting old people should go into a home, because most of your listeners will be old people. And if you upset too many of them, then your audience figures will dwindle, and the BBC controller will give you the hoof. It sounds rubbish. I think it helps if you know the show. I didn't, but it's still brilliant. It's so clever. Not surprised it wasn't one of the games on there, but I think one of the smartest uses of a license, and whoever came up with it, claps and claps and claps for you, son. Bouble Bobble, or Bubble Bobble as it's known to most people, it was a Firebird conversion of a Taito classic. You may remember it. You're basically music that never leaves your head. It's 2 players, single screen. I think it's better on the Commodore 64, but it still plays as well. It does play incredibly well. It looks terrible, I'll give you that. But it was always good when you got like a arcade conversion that, even if it didn't quite look the part, it played just like the parent machine. So yeah, Bubble Bobble is that entry there. Renegade. Now, Target Renegade is on the system, but not Renegade. Why is that? Well, because Target Renegade wasn't based on a coin-op. Renegade was. It was based on the Technos, one of the very first scrolling beat-em-ups of all time. So, yeah, it was done by Imagine. I prefer this to Target Renegade, honestly, even though it's only 1 player. I think it plays so much better. It leans harder into that. There's something a bit too Englishy about the new one, whereas this one felt quite American-y. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but yeah, it's so tight to control. It's a terrific play even today. It's not as good as the Streets of Rage 2s or anything like that, but it's a terrific feat for the Spectrum. 1988 brings us to another really obvious one. I think one that most people will put onto their Spectrums. RoboCop, yes. Ocean's bestseller for many, 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 many years. It kept going. It was always in the top 10. It's a very short game. I think I always forget when I play it how short it is. It can be completed in 25 minutes or less. But it's absolutely dripping in quality, and it became sort of the benchmark for all of Ocean's movie licenses thereon. Had to be on there, I think, and it deserves its place. And we're staying with licenses because that's what I do. Cape Crusader, Batman the Cape Crusader. Comic book style fun. It's an adventure with 2 stories in it, one with the Joker, one with the Penguin. Loved it at the time, really couldn't get my head around it, but there was something about the presentation that blew me away. I think that comic strip look to it. Are there better games on the system? Hundreds more. It's on here because I'm really nostalgic, and I was one of those kids who, when they saw a license, was taken in by it. I can only apologise for my poor choices thus far. Don't worry, they'll probably get worse. R-Type. Yeah, so R-Type I think has to be on there. It's one of the absolute premier coin-op conversions. Electric Dreams converted this kind of space horror by IRM. Terrific shoot 'em up on any format that it's been on. But the Spectrum one, I think, is a real marvel. It plays exactly like the arcade game. And it looks very nice to boot, I think. This would be on most people's to add on list. And my list is no different there. Action Force 2. Gang of Five, who did Dan Dare, made this for Virgin Games again. Based on the toy line. And another game that I wouldn't have played unless I had started this channel. And you may look at this and think, oh, you have to control little karate man. No, you don't control him. He's called Quick Kick. You're actually the cursor. You're actually clearing room by being a sniper and taking out the Cobra operatives. I think you play as a guy called Airtight. I think that's his name, yeah. And also, for no apparent reason, the music appears to be A View to a Kill. So there's that. 1989, another one that I think will be on most people's list of games to add, Chase HQ. Just like R-Type, this was machine pushing goodness. You know the drill, Taito coin-op, where basically you're a policeman with a very hard front of car that you like smashing into the back of criminals' very soft backs of cars. Moves like rump candle off a shovel, terrific presentation, graphics are great, sounds really good as well. It's not arcade perfect, of course it's not, but it was absolutely the best the Spectrum could manage. This is another one that I think is here just because it's a very Britishy game, and I think it's one of those that is stuck in the consciousness of most Spectrum owners. And I think it's one of the first Codemasters games I've had, or if not the first one. It is Rockstar Ate My Hamster. You have to manage a rock band to glory by selling concert tickets, gigs, stadium tours, and of course records. It's very funny at times. Some of the names are pretty funny. There's obviously some problematic artists in there. And one I think that you won't just play once, you'll try it many, many times. And I think it should have been, again, one of the games that was on the base software, but I can understand why it wasn't. Probably because of Electronic Arts being gits, because they own Codemasters these days. But really loved playing this back in the day. It's one of the ones I bought, again, on the strength of the name, because I'm a sucker like that. So let's stay with Codemasters and let's have Fantasy World Dizzy. Now, I didn't go for the first one or the second one because I think they're just a little bit unfair to play. I think I prefer Treasure Island Dizzy to this, but I think Fantasy World Dizzy was where I think all the ideas came together, and that's basically where the series peaked. I think after that it was just kind of retreading old ground. I know Dave Birdsall won't like this one. If you had to pick up one Dizzy game, and I've decided only to pick one, this is the one I've gone for. It's a decent size and it's a really good challenge. But yeah, going back to play it, I can see why people might not have liked it because the jumping in it is so annoying because of the inertia of how the egg rolls. Crikey. Batman the movie. Now, I was all about Batman in 1989 and 1990. I mean, it was an event, wasn't it, if you were there? Not a patch on the NES game, but I think the home computer versions took that formula with RoboCop and its sort of multi-stage, varied gameplay, and it built on it. And I'd say it stands shoulder to shoulder with RoboCop for me. Quite difficult, some good music in it, but you wouldn't be too upset if you opened this on Christmas morning. At least not then. Like, you might be a bit confused if someone bought it for you now. Myth by System 3. A weird one because it was absolutely terrific on the Spectrum, but they converted it onto the NES as a Conan game. It was identical apart from the sprite, and everyone hates it. But this is a platform action game based on mythology. It's really difficult. There's puzzles, there's hacking, there's platforming, but it's really smoothly animated. It's got real character to it. It's one of those ones that I saw a lot of in the magazines, and it was universally loved by them. APB by Domark. Based on the old Atari game, All Points Bulletin. Obviously you play a cop and you have to go around arresting perps in your police car. Proto Grand Theft Auto, as in the original Grand Theft Auto. This, for me, free roamer, you have to basically go around and using a siren, arrest folk. I've always liked this game. It's a bit of a personal choice, this, because I don't know how well other people liked it. I always felt it was really good, solid conversion of the original game, though. So it enters the list for me. It will be added to the Spectrum when I get one. The Untouchables, another movie conversion and another one in that formula that Ocean was so good at, of the varied stages. This one I think was even more varied than RoboCop or Batman, but in this one there's no driving about, it's shooting all the way. A personal highlight coming from the pram level, where you have to kind of run down the stairs making sure that the baby doesn't die. There's not enough games with protect the pram levels, and maybe we should be thankful for that, but this one did it quite well. 1990, and we're with Ivan Stewart. No, I don't know who he is. He's an Iron Man, but not the Iron Man, and is super off-road racing. It's not the most taxing of conversions for the Spectrum, perhaps, but it does a really good job of it. There's probably 1,000 better games like this that Codemasters and others put out on like a budget label, but I only played this one back in the day, and I had a lot of fun with it. So much so I think I bought it on the NES and then the Super Nintendo version as well. Virgin Games again, so they usually do quality games, don't they? Tiny little cars bumping about on mud. What's not to like? And it's 2 players as well. Rainbow Islands, Taito, Ocean, Graph Gold. Those 3 names combined to make one of the very best arcade conversions on the system. A sequel to Bubble Bobble, vertically scrolling, you have to go up the screen and take up various cute little beasties and bastards. Very challenging. Ironically, the rainbows are just one colour on the Spectrum, but the rest of the game is bright and colourful. And you've got that jaunty little music playing in the background if you're playing the 128K version. But an even better arcade conversion, because it was based on a very ho-hum Data East arcade game and made it a lot better, was Midnight Resistance. This is jaw-dropping stuff for the Spectrum. A technical masterclass. So it is. Great to play, gorgeous, and absolutely full of set pieces. Far better than the arcade in my opinion. That is, of course, the opinion of an idiot. But yeah, I think everyone loved this when it came out. SimCity, yeah, so the very famous city builder game, obviously where you have to make sure that your residential areas are far away from those factories and make sure the police are placed anywhere there's a bit of crime. Infogrames put this out on the Spectrum. It's a late stage conversion of what would become a PC standard, I would say. All the features, just as immersive. You can lose hours on it. You're not going to get a lot of games like this on the Spectrum, and this is a quality conversion. Yes, really like it. I've got another quite personal choice, I think, and it's Empire Software's Pipe Mania, which has always been one of my favourite puzzle games, and this is where I first played it and got into it. I've got like a version on the Game Boy, the NES, Super Nintendo. It's an underappreciated classic. What do? Well, you build pipes, enough pipes so that the juice will run out, and it's really hectic. You have to make sure that you're putting the right pipe down. If not, if the juice catches up with the end of the pipe, that's game over. Again, really personal choice. Nothing too flashy about the game or the version of it. It's just where I first played one of my favourite games. So, yeah, top marks. Pipe Mania is in for me. Turrican. I think it's better on the Commodore 64 and the Amiga. But look at it. Look how it pushes this poor little ancient machine to its absolute limits. It's a brilliant shooter still. It's hugely expansive. A colourful delight for the eyes. We're clearly now in the age of technically impressive Spectrum games where their programmers are making the most of the limited memory on the machine. Rainbow Arts, take a bow. This is a great game, and I'll be adding this to my Spectrum when I get it. 1991, and from incredibly colourful to a nice stark monochrome presentation. An anime style presentation, and it's Gremlin Graphics Switchblade, which had originally came out on the Atari ST 2 years before this, which was a personal pet project by Simon Phipps, who also worked on Rick Dangerous, and you can tell it's got that kind of Rick Dangerous feel to it. Perhaps not as frustrating, but it is still very difficult, this. A terrific late stage for the Spectrum, run and gun, well worth a go if you've not played it before. Hudson Hawk, very colourful ocean platformer, based of course on the flop Bruce Willis movie of the same name. It was universally loved, I think, by the press. It's a late stage Euro platformer on the Spectrum, filled with puzzles and arcade action. A really decent challenge, controls really well. There's not much to dislike about it, and it's obviously much better than the movie. So, yeah, good. Potsworth and Company takes us into 1992. And it's a budget game. High Tech released a load of games based on Hanna-Barbera. And it was only this and Scrappy Doo, ironically, that were the only good ones, when you consider it's two platform games about dogs that people either don't remember or don't like. But yeah, really good, terrific, cheapy platformer. I know I'm very license heavy, but that's kind of how I was. But this is a game you shouldn't turn your nose up at, in my opinion. Addams Family. Yeah, this has to be in there because I think it's probably the best looking Spectrum game that came out before it left the shelves. Insanely difficult though, this game. It's a lot easier, I think, on the Super Nintendo. Perhaps that's something to do with up to jump or whatever. You play as Gomez. You have to go and free all of your family members. Is this list very heavy on platformers? I think, especially of late, yes. But that's just kind of how I am and what I like. A sprawling adventure, this. If you could put up with the difficulty level, it's well worth persevering with, because graphically, you'll be delighted at every turn, I'm sure. For the last 3 games, I've decided to doff my cap at the homebrew scene, and 3 games that piqued my interest enough to go and play them. So, Mighty Final Fight then. It's based on the NES conversion of the Final Fight arcade game. Does its own thing a bit, the NES version. and it's uses cutesy sprites, and it works so much better than the Final Fight that we actually got on the Spectrum. I think that was US Gold, and goodness me, that was a bad game. But this could be better than Renegade, you know. It's got great graphics, it's really long, it's got great music, quality animation, just full of colour, plays really, really well, has all the characters, terrific, really good, and something that really opened my eyes about the homebrew scene, this, because it caught my eye and I was like, they're still doing games for the Spectrum, and they're incredible. And this was done by a team in Russia called Sanchez. So hats off, gentlemen. 2022 we're at now, and wonderful Dizzy. Oliver Twins came back for this. It's a punchy little Dizzy game. I think you could finish it in under 2 hours, I'd say. Just look at it. It plays like Dizzy for good and bad. Really loving return for the little egg fella with the boxing gloves. Each individual screen that you go into is loaded with little details, lovingly created. You can tell that this was a real labour of love for the Oliver Twins, and really brought back some memories playing this, some good ones. And it's got that homebrew sheen to it as well that has only been really mastered in the last 20 years or so. Yeah, terrific. And the last game, and the very best one, only came out this year. It's the sequel to Aliens Neoplasma, which is also incredible. And yes, I say that again, this is the best game that has ever come out on the Spectrum. Is that hyperbole? Nope. It's basically Alien 3 meets Metroid. It's like Dan Dare on steroids. It's incredible. Look at the animation. It plays as good as any game of this ilk on the Game Boy Advance, the DS or the Switch, and it looks not far off them. In fact, I think the sort of moody graphics that they've chosen, the whites and the blues and the reds, I think work so well with this, and it almost feels like an artistic choice. It's not, it's them absolutely squeezing every last bit of power out of a Spectrum 128K, and it plays incredible. Seriously, if you've not tried this, give it a go. You have to pay for it though, but it's worth it, so do it. And that brings an end to that. So tell me why I'm wrong, tell me why I picked too many licensed games. I know I picked too many licensed games. Can you make a list of 52? I bet you can. Will it be better than this? Yeah, probably. I've chosen too many licenses and platform games, so yeah, I bet you pick much better ones than me. But remember, don't pick ones that are already on the machine. Have a look at the list first, and I will look forward to your replies if you want to give them. If you don't, well, I'll say ta-ta then. And like, subscribe, and K, thanks, bye.